Good morning. Welcome back to the Savvy Stylist Podcast. I am your host, Amy Walker, and we are going to close out today what has been a multi-episode topic in the beauty industry, all surrounding burnout. We have talked about some really incredible things. We have gone into some detail. We've given some action steps. I hope that by now you're starting to feel like maybe you have a little bit more of a handle on what it might look like, what burnout might look like to you in your body, in your world, in your business. And I'm hoping that you've started to collect a few tools, a few ideas, a few ways to be able to avoid it, to work through it, to navigate it just a little bit better. Today, I want to wrap up this conversation for now because I'm not going to say we aren't going to keep talking about this because we are, because it's important, because it is a massive struggle within our industry. And there are just so many tools and techniques and ways that we can go about working through burnout. And sometimes that even means learning to live with, not that that means to settle for, but we can learn to adapt and live with and understand that this is something that we are going to come across multiple times in our careers within this industry. And it might just be an ongoing process of learning and growing and working through catching things when they're feeling sticky, when it feels like it's getting to be too much, on the days when it's super overwhelming. My goal is to help give you those tools to be able to do that. What I want to talk to you about today, these are all of these topics for this podcast, everything that I'm bringing to you comes from not just my own experiences over the last 20 years, but this comes from conversations that I am having now, that I am having daily with you guys, the beauty industry professional, that are reaching out saying, here's what I'm struggling with. What do I do? Okay. And so a big part of this conversation is really understanding where all of this overwhelm and burnout comes from. Now, I've talked about my experiences a little bit in the past, and I was having a conversation this morning that really got me thinking about where this all comes from. Okay. Now, when we talk about being a hairdresser, a beauty industry professional, and we hear things like, oh, hairdressers are like therapists. My hairdresser is like my therapist. She just doesn't get paid for it. We kind of like laugh that off, but it's very true. We are very much therapists in probably a more important capacity, if you will, and a shorter timeline than what a standard therapist is. For example, you might decide that in your marriage or in your personal life or in, with your mental health, you might choose to seek out a medical professional to help you with those things. And although you're choosing to go to that person for help, to ask the questions, to get the tools and the resources to be able to deal with whatever it is that you're dealing with, there still is a process and a time period of you building trust with that person. You take time, it takes multiple appointments typically for you to build up enough trust and confidence in the therapist, in the medical professional, whoever they are, that it is safe for you to open up and be vulnerable and say the things you need to say and talk about what it is you need to talk about. When you come to a hairdresser, it is very different because you already have decided that you trust that hairdresser the moment that you book the appointment and sit down in the chair. And I say this because as women, as females, and a lot of men, this is not just female dominant, but as individuals who prioritize our physical appearance, when you choose a hairdresser to be responsible for a large part of how you look, you automatically trust them. You are automatically saying, I trust you with my physical appearance, a big part of my physical appearance, before you have possibly even met them. Okay. So there is already a trust. There is already a barrier that has been broken down before you even sit in their chair. So when they come and sit in our chairs, when our beautiful guests show up in our salon and they sit down in our chair and they tell you what they want, they have just given a massive amount of trust to you to be responsible to bring that look to life, and hoping and trusting that you're going to do for them what it is they desire and that it's going to turn out the way they desire. Okay. There's a lot of science behind all of this, but basically, they have come and sat down and they now trust you. Okay. That breaks down a massive barrier that can take multiple sessions, multiple weeks, sometimes months to build with a healthcare professional. Okay. So now they've sat in your chair, they trust you, you're getting to know one another. Fast forward, sometimes it's the first appointment, you guys. This isn't necessarily multiple appointments down the road, but those individuals who we love so much, who have given us their trust, they are looking to us to enhance the way that they look, the way that they feel, the way that they walk through the world. Right? When you have really great hair, for example, today, I feel like my hair is on point and I just feel like I walk a little bit differently. Okay. I have a little bit more pep in my step. This hair today is inspired by my 8-year-old who told me the other day that she just really misses the old mommy. And when I asked her what she meant by that, she goes, when you used to like curl your hair every day and kind of get dressed up. Well, I didn't get super dressed up. I'm still in my leggings and a crop top because I'm at home. But I did my hair and I did my makeup pretty and I put on some pretty earrings. And she noticed instantly when she came downstairs, I should say, I was already downstairs ready to go for the day. When she came down, she noticed right away and she like lit up and was so excited. So that made me feel good. And because my hair is done and it feels a bit fancier than my normal staying at home, working at home self, I feel different. I feel like I've got a little more energy, a little more pep. I feel like I look the way that I want people to see me. Okay. So we're putting that trust in our hairdressers right freaking away. Why is this important to our conversation about burnout? I want you to think about some of the heavy conversations, maybe in the last couple of weeks that you might have had. Maybe it's the last couple of months. Not everybody goes through this consistently, and it really does sometimes depend on your clientele, on the demographic, those sorts of things. But I want you to think about a conversation, an appointment where you had someone in your chair and they had something really heavy to tell you. And I want you to the best of your ability, even if you need to close your eyes, sometimes it helps when we close our eyes and we take ourselves back to that moment. What was the conversation? What was the vibe? What was the topic? Were they looking for advice or were they just looking for somebody to talk to that couldn't tell their secrets? Were they asking you questions or were they just like verbal diarrheaing everything that was going on in their world that was feeling really heavy for them? Or they just needed to get it off their chest? We end up being multiple people to our clients. We end up being kind of like a chameleon. Depending on what they come in with that day, what their energy is, what their excitement is, or their sadness, or their struggles, or whatever it is that they're bringing in that day, they're bringing something. They're not coming and sitting silently. And if they are, that is probably heavier than anything. And I love that we get the opportunity to make space like that for our clients where they can feel safe and they can come and take what they need, leave what they don't at their appointments. But they come, excuse me, to have their looks enhanced, to have their hair done, freshened up, whatever that is. But they are also coming looking for a space where they are safe and feel seen and feel heard. And we get to be that. I want you to just pause for a minute, you guys, because this is not a conversation of we have to, or poor me, or the things we have to deal with. This is an I get to. Okay. I want you to switch your perspective for a second before we go any further. This is something really incredible and really beautiful that we get to do as professionals with our clients. We get to be that person for them. And that is magical, you guys. I do not want you to look at this as a negative. And it is why it is so important to me that I give you guys the tools and techniques and structures and systems and whatever it is that you need to be able to be that person for your client. Because it is a beautiful part of this industry. Yes, it is a part of this industry that can lead to burnout where we end up leaving and doing something different. But when we know how to support ourselves and support our clients and be able to leave and let go of the heaviness and the weight and the shit that's not ours, when we learn to let that stuff go and still be able to show up as our authentic selves and the person that they need us to be, but also the person that we came into work that morning as. Okay. We can't allow all of that, good and bad, positive and negative, good energy, negative energy, whatever. We can't let all of that live in our bodies for the rest of the day, the week, the month, the year, when we go home. Okay. So that's why it's so important to me that we have these conversations and get really, really clear on the why and how to do this and why it's so important. Okay. So they come to us and are looking for multiple things. There's a couple different things that they're coming to us with, looking for, hoping for, expecting. They might be coming literally needing you to be a sounding board. Okay. They might literally just need you to listen. And there's a big difference between listening and helping. There's a big difference between listening and trying to fix. There's a big difference between listening and offering suggestion. When they come in and they literally just want to tell you their stuff, to get it off their chest. They don't want your help. They don't want your support. They don't want your judgment. They don't want your advice. They maybe don't even want to fix whatever it is. They just want to get it out. Okay. They might be coming looking for advice. And you're going to know based on the conversation they start with you, which of those things it is, right? They're going to either start their conversation with something like, I already know how this sounds, but I need to say it. Or I don't need you to help. I don't need you to fix. I know you can't fix, but here's what's going on. Or they might say, hey, I need your help. Hey, what would you do in this situation? Hey, if this was you, if you had a friend that if your sister was, it will be an open conversation and you'll know it. Okay, so they might be coming looking for advice. They might be coming to spill their deepest, darkest secrets, and they know, which they should know, and I say this all the time, it is our job as their hairdresser to like mum's the word. It's an unspoken thing, but what is told to you should never go any further than you, unless of course there's like a health and safety risk, obviously, okay? But for the most part, when our clients come to us to tell us information, to ask us questions, to share their secrets, it stays with us. It starts and ends with that. Okay. It comes to us and it goes nowhere else. And that's why we need to learn how to be able to unload that stuff, which is going to be the next kind of segment that we go into is going to be the energetics piece, the mindset piece, all of that, how we do this. But for now, we're going to stick in the zone of burnout and these conversations. Okay. So, what I want you to understand, and this was the conversation that I had this morning, was that sometimes your clients are coming to you saying they got a promotion, they got a new dog, their kid got gold in gymnastics at the competition that weekend, they're going on a trip, light stuff, fluffy stuff, things that you would talk to an acquaintance about, right? And sometimes you're the first person who finds out that they have cancer. Sometimes you're the first person who finds out that their husband has been cheating on them. Sometimes you're the first person that finds out that they've been cheating on their husband or their spouse, their significant other. Sometimes you're the first person who finds out that they've lost their job. Sometimes you're the first person who finds out that they lost a parent. Sometimes you're the first person that finds out that they can't pay their bills. Sometimes you're the first person who finds out that fill in the blank. Okay. One day I had a client, a longtime client, come. She came every 5, 6 weeks, standing appointments, loved her. Her kids were about my kids' age, 8 and 6-ish, maybe a tiny bit younger even at the time of this. And she was always very like light and airy and fun. And we got along really well. And our conversations were like two girlfriends hanging out and visiting. And she came in one morning and I just could tell. I'd known her for long enough. I'd been doing her hair for long enough that I just could tell that something was wrong. And she sat down in my chair and I took one look at her. And typically when somebody would sit down in my chair, it would start with, how's it going? What's going on? How's your morning or your day or whatever? What are we doing today? You want to, ask the questions to kind of figure out what we're doing. We'd get started and then we'd start talking. And I looked in the mirror at her and I could just tell. And so I moved around to the front of her so that we were face to face. And I knelt down and I put my hands on hers and I said, "What happened?" Because I just knew. And her husband had died. Super healthy, you know, like active, healthy guy, totally freak health thing that happened. And it hit it's this, you guys, was like, this happened, oh my gosh, probably 15 years ago. 15 years ago, probably 15 years ago, at least. And I still to this day can see her face. I can feel the energy. I can hear her words. That has lived with me for a very long time. And I share this story with you because it speaks to the power of the impact that we have on our clients, but it also speaks to how that can live in our own bodies and in our own hearts for a really long time. And there's a difference between it living in our hearts and the remembering of the moments and the feelings and the emotions of it and letting it be the thing that takes you down. I hope that that makes sense. I hope that you understand the difference between being human and having emotion and feeling a certain way, helping other people feel a certain way, being able to support them, and letting it live with you, taking it on, taking that energetic load on when we do that, it piles and piles and piles, and it's one person's stories and it's another person's stories, and then it becomes days and weeks and months. And all of a sudden, we realize that our energetic capacity, our mental capacity to hold any more of people's shit, people's stuff, people's traumas and drama and things, it just becomes too much. And it leads to us burning out of this industry because we just can't do it anymore. You get to a point where it's like, I cannot hear about one more person's affair. I cannot hear that one more person got cancer. Oh my God, my heart can't take it anymore. So we have to learn how to recognize those things happening. We need to learn how to be able to let that stuff go. We need to be able to learn how to balance our own energy and our own emotions and our own thoughts and our own feelings, be able to be present in the moment and help the client through the things that they need help with, but also not take all of that home. Yes. And this is where, when I look back to that day that my client came and sat down and told me that her husband had died, I wish that in that time, in that moment, that I was better able to support her, that I knew better what to say, that I was able to somehow lighten that load for her that day. And I really wasn't. I really just was able to hold space for her, allow her to feel seen, to say what she needed to say, to be upset, to be angry, to be sad, to be frustrated, to be whatever she needed to be. And I would assume that if I were to ask her now about that day and sitting in my chair and how she felt, I'm sure she probably felt like I helped her in some way be able to just like get some of that off her chest. But I wish that I was able to do more. And I wish that for myself, I had the tools to be able to unload that from my body sooner than I did. And so when I see these conversations about people who, stylists, beauty industry professionals, who are just, they're burning out and they can't do it anymore and they're exhausted and they're overwhelmed and they're stressed. And yes, a lot of that comes from so much more than what our clients put on us. That comes from being an entrepreneur. It comes from being a business owner. It comes from trying to build a business and build a clientele and do all of the things. Um, but it makes me really sad to see that there is such a need for a different type of education, for a different type of work inside the beauty industry. But because no one's talking about it, it's not being normalized. People feel like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have those conversations. Maybe I shouldn't, you know, say the things. Maybe I shouldn't reach out for the help. Maybe I shouldn't learn how to do this on my own, right? They're not having the conversations. And so it becomes kind of taboo, like it's just part of the job. Like, oh, it's just part of what I do. It's just part of being a hairdresser. It's just part of who I am and what I have to do for a paycheck. And so a big part of the work I do is not just teaching you how to build a clientele, not just teaching you how to make more money, not just teaching you how to figure out what it is that you actually want to do, what actually lights your soul on fire, and being able to build on it and scale it. I also am very passionate on helping you and your energetic self be able to maintain your level of success, grow your level of success without succumbing to burnout, without succumbing to the overwhelm, without succumbing to the stress and the anxiety, without being, without turning into a person that you don't recognize, without going home at the end of the day and being so overwhelmed and exhausted that like you just don't know how you can converse anymore or be present anymore. You have a big, beautiful life. You are going to have a big, beautiful life. And being a beauty industry professional is just a part of it. It is not the whole piece. But when that part becomes more of a negative, more of a hindrance on your life, on your personal life, on your relationships, on your mental health, on your physical health, then it's time for change. And that is a big part of what I am doing as the Savvy Stylist. I'm bringing it to you here, bringing it in my platforms, in my programs. And I just hope that these conversations that we're having bring some awareness, shed some light. We are going to start talking a little bit more about the energetics piece. Super exciting to share this with you. I have just started. Well, by the time this episode goes live, I will have already started, but going into a 6-month certification program to be able to teach you the work that has literally changed my life, that is in the process of changing my life, and that is going to bring to life a whole new era of the industry, a whole new era of the coaching and the teachings that I am able to bring to you. Yes, I could teach you the things that have worked for me. I could teach you the things that I like doing, but that is literally coming from a place of here's what worked for me. And I'm okay sharing a lot of that, but I want to be able to teach you properly in a way that resonates for you and that works for you, all of the different modalities that have helped me become who I am becoming, that have helped me avoid burning out, that have at times helped me overcome the burnout in a lot of different areas of my life, not just behind the chair, but it's also helping me become the person that I desire to be. And when I look at what I want my business as a beauty industry professional to look like, there are things that I need to work on, and there are things that I need to do to get myself to that level of success. And that is what this work is all about. So, very soon, my friends, we are going to be diving into some really cool, fun, just like freeing and exciting and exhilarating and like, where has this been my whole life stuff. So stay tuned. If you are somebody who's listening to this episode and you are struggling, you are in the midst of, maybe you can feel it coming on, maybe you are at the point of, if something doesn't change dramatically, I'm out. I'm quitting. I'm moving on. I'm going to do something different. If you're struggling, I would love to have a conversation with you. Obviously, I am not here to give any type of medical advice. So if you feel like the struggles that you're having requires medical attention, please find somebody in your community to help you with that. But when it comes to your business, when it comes to clientele and making money and building a business and figuring out what the hell it is you want to do, I would love if you reached out to me on social media and just let me know that you listened to this episode and that you would love to jump into more conversation about what that can look like for you. Figuring out what your magic is, what works of art need to come to life, what areas of your business you love so much, and what feels like a little sticky and like it's not working. I just would love to hear from you. Your feedback as my listeners on this podcast means the absolute world to me for a whole bunch of reasons. I just want to connect with you. I want to know who you are. I want to know who my listeners are, but I also want to know that the content that I'm bringing to you here at the Savvy Stylist Podcast is resonating and that it's helping and that it's relevant. So I would love to hear any takeaways, any wins, any ahas. Head over to Instagram, the Soul Centric Stylist. Send me a message. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, if you have suggestions, things you want to hear me talk about, questions you want to ask, send me a little love note. Let me know what you'd like to hear on this podcast. If there's something I can help you with, this helps me to build content that is very relevant and specific for the people listening to the podcast. So I love you all so much. Make sure that you are following. Share this with a friend. Leave a review. Leave a 5-star review if that feels good to you. I can't wait to hear from each and every one of you. I love you guys so, so much. As always, thank you so much for being here. I am Amy Walker. This is the Savvy Stylist Podcast, and I will see you on the next episode.